Hello everyone, and once again a very, very good evening and a very warm welcome. Like I've said before, it's usually a warm welcome in Goa. Obviously I'm also talking about the weather, but today luckily it's rained, and of course we have the Siddharth, so we're going to have a pleasant evening, I'm sure. Can I request everyone to please put their phones on silent mode? I'll just give you all a minute or two to do that. Thank you so much. So good evening, Goa, and all you wonderful people. I, Vaishali Joshi, the Ehsaas woman of Goa, welcome you all to the very special evening of our program today, the Right Circle. The Right Circle is a platform which is organized by the Prabha Khaitan Foundation under many of its literature initiatives. It is birthed to bring together authors and readership of English literature and language in close, engaging, and informal settings. The sessions are structured around the life and works of the author, followed by an interaction with the audience. The Right Circle started its journey from Jaipur and now has conducted sessions across India and even overseas in Oxford, Birmingham, New York, and Oslo. Today's event is in collaboration with, of course, Siddharth the Goa, who are our hospitality partners and have always been and have been very, very good to us, media partner Lokmat, and the tireless support of the Ehsaas women of Goa. We have a very special personality today, so I'd like you to give her a very warm round of applause, Jyotsna Mohan. But before we dive into the most awaited conversation of the evening, let me take a couple of minutes to talk about the Prabha Khaitan Foundation. I know it might be repetitive for some of you who regularly attend our events, but we are here today because of the Prabha Khaitan Foundation and because of Ms. Prabha Khaitan, who actually started all of this. So we cannot begin the evening without talking about the foundation and paying a little homage to her. The Prabha Khaitan Foundation is a non-profitable trust committed to humanitarian and socio-cultural causes. Late Dr. Prabha Khaitan established it as a charitable trust in the early 1980s. Based in Kolkata, it is committed to supporting women's empowerment, gender equality, literature, culture, children's welfare, social causes, arts, and performing arts. Late Dr. Prabha Khaitan was an eminent Indian literature, philanthropist, social worker, entrepreneur, and feminist who established the foundation and is embodied in her famous words, Karm hi Jeevan hai, meaning work is life. Charting a glorious 40-year journey, the foundation has only gone from strength to strength by launching many initiatives to further the cause that Dr. Khaitan had envisaged. PKF organizes authors' meets, book launches, literature festivals, panel discussions, boutique festivals, and events of performing arts. The foundation curates the best of events to widen the spectrum of language and literature, not just English, but Hindi and regional. Authors and artists connect with their niche audience through diversified events like Kalam, Kitab, Ek Mulaqat, Tete, Aakhar, Lafz, Sur aur Saaz, Muskan, Rahat, Karuna, and so on. To create awareness in the community, we uphold one pressing social issue every month. And this month, it is about nature and preservation. And we are elated to share that the 3-time Grammy Award winner, Ricky Cage, who is the man behind the signature tune of the Prabha Khaitan Foundation, has curated many amazing pieces, and every month he curates one piece. And in the video invite that you have received, the music is by the well-known Ricky Cage. The lady of the moment, of course, Ms. Jyotsna Mohan. As an award-winning writer and journalist with nearly 3 decades of experience across television, print, and digital media, Jyotsna's writing blends journalistic insight with a deep sense of social responsibility. A former senior editor and senior anchor at NDTV, I'm sure you've all seen her, her journey led her to pen her debut book, Stoned, Shamed, Depressed, where she offers a stark, eye-opening look into the hidden lives of India's urban teenagers, revealing a silent crisis shaped by the digital addiction, substance use, academic pressure, and mental health struggles. Based on the family newspaper, her latest book, Pratap, a Defiant Newspaper, a powerful legacy of fearless journalism, which she has co-authored with her journalist father and was released by HarperCollins India. Jyotsna Mohan comes from a family that didn't just witness history, they lived through it in the most volatile moments. Jyotsna Mohan has as a co-author of this powerful narrative, offers us not only a journalist's account, but a daughter's lens into a Punjab on fire. Her story begins in the red brick corridors of Pratap Bhavan, where newsprint and danger went hand in hand. In 1983, a parcel bomb tore through the office of Pratap, killing 2 young employees, both in their 30s, with families and both, as Jyotsna writes, sacrificed for the country. So we have a very, very illuminating evening ahead of us. And it's going to be very interesting because she's going to talk about both her books and, of course, about her life. And in conversation with her, we have our very own Shruti Juwarkar, known to everybody, I'm sure. A self-made entrepreneur and a mother of 2, she's a passionate advocate for self-improvement and cultural preservation. Born in the vibrant city of Varanasi and now based in Goa, she brings Banarasi weaves to the global stage as founder and CEO of Girasta Couture Private Limited. Since 2016, Shruti has championed sustainability through her apparel brand Rouge Serve. Representing the Prabha Khaitan Foundation in Goa, she promotes Indian art and culture as part of the Ehsaas Women of Goa initiative. So thank you so much once again to everybody for being here, and let's bring it on. Thank you.
So I'll start with the excerpt from her book. It says, "She looked like a skeleton. No size of clothing fit her. Tara became a recluse, avoided her friends, and would have frequent nightmares. It took 45 minutes to draw a few drops of blood. She was only 15. This is Jyotsna's first book, Stone Shamed, Depressed. When I first read this passage, I had to pause. Tara could be anyone's daughter, anyone's sister, anyone's friend. The girl sitting quietly at the dinner table who never says much. We often think we would know if someone we love was struggling. But what if we were wrong? What Jyotsna Mohan uncovers in her book isn't just shocking, it's familiar. And that's what makes it heartbreaking. These aren't rare cases. These are stories unfolding silently around us, behind privileged doors, beneath perfect Instagram posts. Moving to her book Pratap, I would like to share. Jyotsna comes from a family that bore the brunt of the Punjab's darkest years. In 1983, the parcel bomb that exploded in the Pratap's office killed 2 young employees who were just 34 with very young kids and wives. Her family friend, Mr. Ramesh Chandar, was assassinated less than a year later. The third major killing in the family after Lala Jagat Narayan. Yeah. The Mohans lived under constant threat with police warnings, sound of gunfire near their home, and a chilling silence from fellow newspapers. I even read that there were no condolences made. Still, they refused to leave Punjab. As Jyotsna writes, I have also made sacrifices for the country. Her story is one of loss, courage, and the price of speaking the truth. And today, we get to speak to her, a woman who dared to give voice to those silent stories. So today is more than an interview. It's a conversation, a healing, and a beginning. So Jyotsna, I would like to start from your childhood. I was briefly catching up with her before we thought of this interview, and I asked her about her childhood. Would you like to narrate? And like a normal childhood, we always believe that it would be full of schooling and friends. And I wanted to know what were her friendships like, growing up and moving. But she narrated that her childhood was full of terror. And if you could enlighten us about that. Yeah.
Okay, firstly, everyone, thank you for taking the time out and for coming out today in this weather and the traffic. And it's my pleasure actually to share my story and these stories with you all today. So thank you very much. I grew up in Punjab during the years of terrorism in a family that was on the hit list of terrorists for 10 years. They say that, we underestimate children. I always say that, we always say, the children, what will they understand? I am a living example of how much a child can internalize. As a 10-year-old, I was 10 when the bomb blast happened in my my family office. It was sent to my grandfather. My father usually would open the post. So it came to my father's desk. And he thought maybe it's one of those advertisements that keep coming. He tried to open it, but it was nailed so securely, and he didn't have time. He was very busy writing. So he actually called a peon, and he said, just open it. So the guy stood next to my father, and he tried to open the parcel, but he couldn't open it because of the nails. So he said, I'll just take it to the other room, and I'll open it. I'll get it opened. And in the next 30 seconds, there was a blast. And he went, another employee went, and one was seriously injured. And as a result of this, I grew up in, maybe that's why I have an affinity when I write in my first book about a lot of mental health in children. Because I grew up in an era where, I was never sure if my father or my grandfather would be home from office every evening. Every evening I stood by the window waiting to just hear the car horn to make sure that they're home. And this would be on repeat for years and years and years. But as a child, you can't really speak about it because, the adults have their own traumas to deal with. My mom was going through a lot of physical, health issues, which I've also mentioned here. And a lot of people ask us, as to why Pratap could have been written earlier. Why didn't we write it earlier? And this was the singular reason because, after having lived in that era, my parents wanted no spotlight on themselves. And more than my father, it was my mother. Because she said, we've been through so much, I do not want to be in the public eye anymore. I couldn't write about this for years. I remember having written a column, I had to withdraw it because of my parents. And my dad, being a journalist, he said that, look, I'm never going to write a half-baked story. Either I write it all or I write nothing. So to convince him, I think took me longer, but once they were on board. And, as Shruti said, we take so much for granted. Schooling, we take it for granted. You've got a child is going to get up, is going to go to school. There was a year I didn't go to school. We were all withdrawn from school. We couldn't leave the gate. I still remember my mom was so fed up, because the kids are at home all the time. And I said, Mama, all I need to do, I just want to cycle just outside the gate. And my mom said, all right. But as soon as I stepped out, we had high-end security. The guy said, please get inside. So for years, there was no proper schooling. There was curfew. Every morning you would wake up, not knowing whether you're going to school. You would go with an army of security men behind you. So I grew up in a conflict zone. It was not an ideal growing up. And there are repercussions, physically, mentally.
So, like you said, your father said that he wouldn't write unless he can write the whole thing, and your mom did not want to come in the public eye. And you have done so much of journalism, and you have a lot of exposure, as Vaishali has already introduced. So, was there ever a time that you had to choose between personal safety and telling the true story? What did you choose, and how did you make that choice?
My father always says that, I'm not influenced by him, I'm influenced by my grandfather. And in fact, Pratap is also my grandfather's story because at the age of 18, he first went to jail, sent into jail for, I'm sorry, I'm digressing, but it'll all connect. What we've read about in the history books, the Saunders case. He was actually arrested for the Saunders case, and by the time my grandfather was 22, he had been jailed 9 times by the British. And, he was one of the most hardened whatever, they had a lookout for him all the time. He eventually did go back to picking up the paper, and he was very fearless. So during the Punjab era, he would go to office and he wouldn't change his routine. And this is the thing that the police would tell you every single day: please change your routine. You cannot be going to A and B the same way. You're being watched. My grandfather would not listen. So he would finish his work, and every day he would have this particular shop from where he would buy fruits for the day for the family. And my father and my uncle finally told him, like, stop. And so one fine day he actually looked at them and said, enough. I have made bombs. This does not scare me. And he carried on. He was shadowed. There were chases by terrorists till his car was chased. The bomb happened. There were terrorists in our house who tried to climb in through a window in a room. So we've had many, many episodes. But I think I have learned from my grandfather that, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So, you keep going. It's foolish at times. There are a lot of times my mother tells me even now that lower that voice. It's not going to get you very far. But I don't know any other way. So, there's a give and take. But I think there's more of, you keep pushing because someone has to do it. And even if we're in a minority now, you keep pushing the thing, then there's a pushback. Maybe you keep quiet for a week, you keep quiet for a couple of weeks, and then you start again. So you write columns get censored, that scissor comes, it, but you keep pushing. Sometimes you say, okay, withdraw the column. I'm not going, if this is how much you want to cut, I don't want it out because it reflects on me. But someone has to keep doing it. So no, I don't think it comes into my mind to practice journalism any other way. And I think I've also been fortunate because I was in NDTV for 15 years under Dr. Pranoy Roy. And this was, the golden time of journalism. So I've actually learned journalism from my home and from the best in television. And it frustrates me of what it has become today, but I wouldn't practice it any other way.
And you have quoted many, many strong stories in both your books, and we'll come to both of them. But before that, I wanted to draw two questions together because you said that you have best and you've seen the golden era. I wanted to understand that you've moved to Abu Dhabi, and how has that changed, journalism for you, and what was the reason, and how you see yourself in the future shaping journalism here back in India, because you've had a long lineage. By the way, Jyotsna's entire family, she is a 4th generation journalist, and her entire mom's side are all scholars, and so she comes from a very, very, very strong lineage as well. So I want to know that how was this decision of moving to Abu Dhabi taken, and what has this impact?
I've been in Abu Dhabi in 2 phases. The second one was just at the cusp of COVID, but I was there earlier, and the reason I went back is because I went back to working. I was there briefly for 3 years, and I came back and I worked for 3 years. And I was supposed to come back, but I think this decision of not coming back now has been also primarily been taken because journalism has changed. It is not what journalism was or what television news was. There is not a single news channel I would like to be associated with at this point. I know Rajdeep did one talk with the foundation, and he's my former boss, so I'm very fond of him. And he to me is one of the very few people still doing the right journalism, but he's obviously also, it's a one-man show. It's not the organization. So I think I don't need to be in a physical space. I'm doing exactly what a lot of us are doing now, which is dabbling on YouTube. It's a very tough environment. It's, I was speaking to some friends from NDTV, and we were saying, we've hustled and we have worked so hard for so many years that at this stage in our lives, this is not where we were meant to be. But journalism in itself took a 360 degrees turn. And, we've been stranded in a sense. We've been trying to evolve. So I've done the best I could all along the way to keep evolving and moving because, in my heart of hearts, I know there's enough that I still want to share and give. So while I wrote my first article at 16, During the time of terrorism, it was just, I was so fed up and so scared that I actually took a piece of paper and penned down my thoughts. And I mailed it to an editor in a national daily. Nothing, not printed, just with my handwriting, and I sent it. Didn't tell anybody in my family. I forgot about it. It was just a way of me venting it out. And that was the first time I made it. It just came in a newspaper. It came as a centerpiece. And my grandfather came running and, most excitedly saying, this is her. And, he eventually then started giving me money. I moved to Delhi for college. And he would send me money every month, 500 rupees, saying, this money is for newspapers. This is all you're going to do. You're not going to waste it on shopping, spending, partying. If you promise me that you will spend it only on newspapers, I will send it and I will help you to become a journalist. Because if you want to be a journalist, you have to read as much as you write. So my grandfather sent, he would send it. And I remember it was December. And I got his money. And normally I would send a letter back or I would call. And I said, okay, I was going home in 2 days. I was in Delhi in Ehsaas. And I was going home and I said, I'm just going to go home and thank him. And he had a heart attack the day before I was to reach. And so that last bit of 500 rupees still lies in my locker. I've never used it. It's been demonetized many times over. But it just lies like a reminder of what I have to be and what I should be. Fearless and speaking truth to power and to keep evolving, I've evolved. I went into television. It was just meant to be for a few years because like I was telling these ladies, it's, when you're young, you just want to earn money and you want a glamorous life and, you just want to earn money more than anything else, right? I mean, you want to be independent. And so I got into that space. I heard that, television is new. It's got lots of money. It's got corporate banking, and it's got corporate backing. So I got into a channel called Business India Television, which is beautiful, very creative. And, that little detour of mine took 30 years. So then when I had children is when I stepped back. But that's when I went back to writing because in my opinion, we women have to juggle quite a bit. I mean, whether we acknowledge it, don't want it to be, but this is how it is. My husband was traveling, he was out of the country. Dr. Roy told me, look, I will open the creche longer for you. And I said, it is not fair. Like my elder daughter was some months old. I would bring her to the office creche. I would leave her there. But the creche had to finish at 7. I had to send my daughter home. There was no one at home. So at some point I had to take a step back and that's when I went back to writing. And I never thought I would write books. But it happens, I think there's the belief in yourself that you are who you are, right? And you cannot let anybody else dictate to you as to what you want to be. So you are the best self of yourself. And if you have a belief and if you have that confidence in yourself, which I do, despite where journalism is, I could sit here really frustrated and say, oh my God, there are no jobs and cry, but I choose to keep going. And I think that's how the books came. Yes.
By the way, I must tell you that Jyotsna is also, even though she has had a long lineage of journalism, she is the first woman journalist in her entire lineage. So, like she said, as women, we do juggle many roles. And hats off to you managing 2 kids and, the profession that you did because it's not easy. So, when I was talking to her and I was trying to understand her, obviously it was too much of information overload for me and I was too scared because someone so profound with so much of knowledge, I barely read anymore. So, and I was really scared. So I said, what do you really want to, talk about? Because I want to put out the human self of you. And she said, I just want the women to believe in themselves and know that they are capable of achieving so much more because they are, and that's what she wanted to talk about, and it was so touching. So when I just want to digress a bit to your book about stone shamed and depressed, so because it's a book that is very, very close to a lot of women in heart, because a lot of women here are mothers and we all are I'm a mother and I'm dreading the phase it's going to be because they're talking about contrabands available outside nursery, primary schools these days, So I want to know that what motivated you to, you said that, having a tough childhood did, but, what motivated you to talk about this, and what was the toughest story that stayed with you even after the pages closed?
So this was a tough book to write for many, many reasons, because also the story of children is, children who are facing these challenges with no outlet of speaking is very hard. Like I said, I was in Abu Dhabi for 3 years. I moved back, and in that time, my elder one went to school again and was getting bullied. She's a player, and she got into the school team immediately, and she was bullied by the girls in the school team as to, you've just been here like barely a month, and how dare you make it. And it was literally like, she's a petite person, so they pulled her and they flung her. It was physical bullying. And that's when I started looking at these issues and started writing about it. And the more I dug in, I kind of realized everything is changing. Even bullying as we know it is no longer the same. Girl on girl bullying is I think the worst kind of bullying that you can find at the moment. It's worse than physical bullying of that school and colleges that we all are, we know of. So I kind of started to dig in, and I noticed there was a case that came out of some student threatening his teacher with rape. And it was unreal, that there's that aggression in that generation started to come out. There's that angst. So the more I dig, I'm actually fascinated, because I'm shocked that nobody got this story before me. It was waiting to be written, if I may. And I think I went to a friend whose son had just finished college, and, I'm very close to him, and I said, Sean, do you know children that you can put me through to? And, I just want to speak to them on their impressions about what they feel about having a smartphone, or what they feel about vaping. Vaping is another one. And he said, yeah. So he put me through to 2 people, and it became like this Chinese whisper. Those 2 kids, I needed to go nowhere. Kids came to me with their stories, and that again was a lesson that no one's listening to them, that they are going through so much, but they have no outlet, that there is just the amount of peer pressure that they are going through. They don't know where to take it out or how to take it out. And I think at the end of the day, we have done them a great disservice by giving them that phone so early, or giving them access to social media. And so I just went, it was like a Chinese whisper from one kid to another, in the middle somebody would tell me that, our parents, they are addicted to Coke, but but we are not like that. So we only do marijuana. These are 13, 14, 15-year-olds, Or somebody else came around, my parents vape, but so what I did was I took the vapes and I went to school, I sold them, and I made some money. Kids are very smart. Also, I realized that a lot of these children, I knew their parents. So the parents didn't know I was speaking to the children didn't know I knew the parents. Client confidentiality. But so this book was divided into 6 chapters, and I said 5 chapters I had it in me. I said, oh my God, 5 doesn't look, it doesn't look substantial enough, so I should at least have 6 chapters. What should I write about? So I was getting a whiff of gaming. I said, okay, let me see where gaming takes me, and I'll write that in the end. And it was the 6th chapter, and I said, okay, I'm going to write it in the end. And it's going to be, I'm not, I think it's going to be the most boring. So I just, in my mind, in my head, in my work, I pushed it to the end. It was the most fascinating chapter I have written. The kind of disclosures of what goes on through gaming was a revelation to me. I think, when you ask me if something stood out for me, gaming. And that playground of gaming, which we as parents are completely unaware about, So may I just read a little bit of the introduction, perhaps? I'm going to just read out from the introduction just to sum it up. And no, I got it. Thank you. This is not a book on parenting. If there's one thing I've learned over the years, it is that very few people welcome advice. The book is a narrative of today's school life in urban India and also Tier 2, and an insight into the lives of teens Through 6 chapters, it attempts to investigate and chronicle the lives of children as they embark on a confused journey to adulthood. A road that is full of temptations and easy adventure, where the boundaries get blurred and where what happens today can have repercussions for years to come. The identities of many of the people quoted in this book have been protected and their names changed. However, some of them were willing to be identified. This book is their story. Never have 2 words changed a society, especially one like ours that resists change so intensely as much as social media. For young people and many of their parents, their existence begins and ends with social media. From sexting to hacking, the playground has morphed into a battlefield. As a former student told me, everything that is happening in schools is a gateway to something bigger. She was not referring to the UPSC or the Ivy League. Instead, she was alluding to the natural progression from hash to cocaine for a drug addict, and how peer pressure can lead to addiction. Everything seems to come easily to today's teens, from likes on each moment of their lives uploaded on Instagram to self-harm. When the teens spoke from their sense of betrayal to their pleas, it all came pouring out. The road is scattered with danger signs, yet I find an overpowering sense of inevitability and resignation in homes. Denial is what got us here, and denial is what will take our children down. As a society, it seems that anything uncomfortable is too sensitive to debate or question. But if there is no conversation, there will be no answers. Anonymity bestowed by social media is a gift that keeps on giving and leads to slut-shaming and blackmail, among many other dangers. It is this desperate compulsion of a Red Bull generation that made me dig deeper. But for today's teens, this is the only way forward, and not all of it is bad. However, peer pressure has mutated into different and new strains. It can break children physically and take a heavy toll on them mentally. Unfortunately, in today's time, YouTube is used as a babysitter by many families. This kind of exposure to the internet led to a private school in Bangalore issuing an advisory. Despite this, when a teacher asked a class of 11-year-olds about the best part of their holidays, many replied that it was the day they were gifted iPads and AirPods. They are not even teens. Sometimes one hat does fit all, and for the most part, children are what their parents will allow them to be. Many may argue that addiction is not a problem only for urban, well-to-do families. Rampant drug addiction amongst the homeless is, of course, known. While that is sadly true, this book focuses on the compulsions of those who are materially well off, where everything is on a platter yet never enough. Privilege is a curse for so many children, a generation that has the best of education, yet not much to show for it. In a society like ours, conversations do not come easy, and if they do, they remain stilted. Porn, patriarchy, depression, drugs, everything is off limits. The answer to any problem, whether from schools or the government, is to ban it. When freedom is unrestrained and consent is not respected, trouble inevitably follows. So I'm going to quote Charles Dickens, who began his Tale of Two Cities with the immortal lines, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness." The same can be said about the world today.
Very, very thoughtfully put down, and I must say that whatever you have put down is the reality today that we witness. So, Jyotsna also conducts a lot of sessions about how to, identify these things, and probably if you could just share a few tips, I mean, this wasn't the part of the initial interview, but I'm very intrigued because you have a lot of insights that can be helpful to all of us.
So there were two kind of reactions to this book. The adults who trolled and abused me, okay, especially men. This does not happen in our families. Your children must be stone-shamed or depressed. Ours are perfectly fine. Ours don't vape. Ours don't do anything. Everything is fine in our homes. And then there were the children. I cannot tell you the amount of children who wrote on my Instagram DM asking for help. There were so many that I actually had to, go back to all the counselors whose opinion I had taken for the book, and I had actually just sent out a memo saying, look, I need help. I am not a professional, I'm not a therapist, but these children need help. And they don't have money, or they're not willing to speak about it in the families because the families don't want to acknowledge. Some have tried, and I've mentioned that. So a lot of these people, God bless them, did pro bono work. And, they took over these children, and then they reported to me, over the course of the time as to how it was going. But this was this generation. So these were the kind of reactions I got. And to these adults, I said, the reason I write this book is exactly why y'all are, why? Because the way you react is why I write. And that's how unfortunate it is, because, children have spoken about that fact that they've gone up to their parents and said, look, we need help. We need help for addiction, or we need help in terms of depression or something, and it's been dismissed as child's play. Kuch nahi, bahar jao, khel lo, you'll be fine. And unfortunately, that's the reaction that these children have struggled against, and it's a very, very tough generation to negotiate. Whichever way you look at it, they are not easy. There's that angst which is always at the edge. I don't understand where it has come from, but it is there. And social media has compounded the issues to a huge, huge level. So I think for parents at this point, I think the only thing we can do is to be one step ahead of them and to know what they're doing. Because if you're going to say, oh, my child is just on YouTube, it's not just. Nothing is just with this generation. And my elder one, who's almost 17, and she was telling my husband, she said, you must be the only father in this world who puts screen time limit. I'm a laughing joke in my school. It's like, too bad. I gave her Instagram at 14, and that's the only social media she has. She's the only, and I know because she's on my social media, I'm on hers. So when she had posted something, she reposted something I had posted. So a mother wrote to me saying, my God, your daughter and you know each other's Instagram accounts. My son won't even tell me the name of his account. And by the time you'll get to know that your child has one account, they're on to their third. So it's a minefield out there. I'm not envying us as parents. And that little advice I would actually just give is to look out for behavioral changes and to keep at it. I'm not saying that sit with your child and say, Aaj kya hua? Tell me how was school. They'll never tell you anything. You have to sit with them. You can read a book. You can be sipping your tea. If something they want to share, and my children are like that, I've realized this is the way it works. If they really want to, they'll come. They won't speak to me for 1 hour. They'll do their own thing. After 1 hour, mama, it'll come. Or at night, when you're ready for bed, you want to sleep, mama. But I'm glad that those conversations are still happening. I cannot tell you, I have so many friends whose children are vaping. My daughter was in class 6th when 4 students in her class were suspended because they were caught vaping in the bathroom. And vaping is the other epidemic which I don't think any of us should underestimate, because, they come in all disguises. Firstly, you can't smell them. So they can it's more harmful because, that one pod that they smoke, it's adulterated. It could have all kinds of marijuana, oil, or everything. Secondly, it's equal to 1 packet. So to say that vaping is a substitute for cigarette is absolutely false. Children are all vaping. So my kids will come and tell me, Mama, this one was vaping in the bathroom, this student was vaping in the bathroom. Parents don't know. And I went to somebody and I said, look, I know your son is vaping. You may want to look into it. My son does not vape. I said, all right, you're a close friend, I will do you a favor. That boy came and, he sat and he was like, hi, auntie. And I said, so how's the vaping going? He was having Coke. That Coke just went splattering, If he wasn't, he'd be like, so that reaction, and then she understood. So it's very, very hard. The book is not to run any parent down, because all of our parenting ways are different, and frankly, I don't want to learn how to parent my child. You will not learn how. My book is just to show people that this happens. that there is a system that to say that this does not happen in India is a fallacy, because our children are at par with what happens abroad. The Netflix and, you know, everything that they're watching at the same time that it's released elsewhere. Now I tell my children that things have changed. You all are watching that, and you know, you want to be in the same thing as what is happening in the US and the UK. But now what is happening there? They're pushing back. They've already hit the high and they're coming down. There's a pushback against phones. There's a pushback against social media. Australia has banned it. Ireland has been at it. UK has been at it. I said, now look at, there's a reason. So Abu Dhabi also, you know, there's like this pushed back. You can't get your phones to school or keep them, which is great. But in India, that knowledge comes very belatedly, and it's very unfortunate because it does a lot of damage. And my point on this was, just because they are children doesn't mean that these dangers and challenges are not big enough and not, you know, and not serious enough.
I have a habit of listening to the radio when I go back from my office to home or whatever. So, you know, one day I was just listening to the radio where it said that the gummies outside the primary schools are, you know, adulterated, you know, like, and my child is 5. I thought this is going to come when they're in their teens. I thought I was still safe, you know, and then I was like, what the hell just happened? Like, you know, where are we? And like you rightly said, that we're still following the West, but we are not realizing that West has pushed back so much and cut back so much. Like Australia has made a rule that you cannot have a social media account until you're 16
or 16.
Yeah. Well, we can go on discussing about this, but the time permits us to discuss a few things. And I would like to enlighten the audience today that she has a podcast as well, which is Table Talks with Jo. And I would like you to share a little about the podcast and why you do it, what are the subjects that are closest to your heart about it, and what is it that you're really looking forward to talk about on your podcast.
So I began that podcast actually just as an Instagram live during COVID. You know, I kind of felt that I had access to a lot of doctors through my work. You know, I knew a lot of doctors, and people were struggling for information at that point. So I started just getting them onto, you know, just 30 minutes of Instagram Live and just opening it up to people to ask their questions. We can't find medicine, we can't find oxygen cylinders. It was literally like, where should we go? And so, you know, every other day I would just get a doctor from wherever I could, pediatrician, whoever, you know, just to help the people out. And so once things kind of calmed down, I thought I'll close it, but it had taken a life of its own by that time. So, you know, my journalist friends were like, no way, now you can't. So I continued doing it on Instagram. You know, I would do it once a week, twice a week, just get issues that I'm like really passionate about: mental health, activism, disability, sports. And then slowly, you know, I've just like kind of migrated it now to YouTube. And I basically now focus on stories that are inspiring. It could be anybody, but you know, that will help you think. It's not, I've interviewed Neeraj Chopra a couple of times. I'm not interviewing him to know why has he not crossed 90 meters more than one time, or, you know, his gold medal. And I interviewed him just after he won that gold medal, like 2 days later or something. And we had this whole conversation on what makes him who he is. And I think that has been the goal of this podcast, to kind of make you think and also to practice journalism the way it's meant to be. No noise, no screaming, no yelling. If I have a guest on the show, it means I want you to hear the guest. It means I want you all to hear, it means I want to hear him speak. I don't want you all to hear me. I'm not the guest. And that's something that journalism and, you know, media houses have forgotten, the yelling and the screaming and that prime time debate. So we've kind of, you know, I get people, and I'm glad while I do it really, sometimes, you know, I've taken a break now because of the book, but I think I'm fortunate because there's one kind of reaction that I've got every single time I've done an episode. It is to say that we have never enjoyed an episode more, because I've allowed the people to come and speak. You know, anybody. It's been a Kabir Bedi, it's been a Rajdeep, it's been a Ravish. Every single person who I've got on that show has been able to share the story and what makes them behind the scenes in the way journalism was meant to be. So I'm still trying to do journalism the good old way, against the tide. Yeah, you know, it's hit and misses because these days, to be financially independent, you've got to take a stand. And so if you don't take a stand, finances are not easy, you know.
I'm going to drive back to your book because that's the new one, and I'm sure you all would be already interested to read about it. So I just want to know one small thing, that you said that you were motivated by your grandfather, and inspired by him largely, but you wrote a book with your father. I mean, that's a very unusual duo we have heard of. How was it writing? And I'm going to blend one more question with it, is saying that because of the time crunch, saying that, you have a long legacy that we discussed about and you shared of the scene. So how has that, has it laid a burden sometimes on you, or you always found it as a boon?
No, I've embraced it wholeheartedly, actually. It wasn't. Nobody stopped us from being journalists, So while I may be the first woman journalist in my family in 4 generations, but it was my grandfather, like I said, and my father openly says it. He's like, she's not influenced by me; she's inspired by her grandfather. It's it is how it is. But my father, having been a newspaper editor for 50 years, had his own way of looking at things. So while I pushed him to write the book, I always say that he's the one who showed me journalism all over again, as to how it is to be a journalist who has 50 years of experience. It's very different. And my father lived through terrorism, and many instances of, we've quoted about the emergency and how they tried to shut down the newspaper, and my grandfather again resisted censorship. So my father lived through it, and we were on a podcast, my father, Rajdeep, and I. So it's literally like 50 years, 40 years, and 30 years. And this is how the pyramid was. At 50 years, my father is the most disheartened with where journalism is today. Rajdeep is somewhere in the middle. I was laughing. I said, Rajdeep, you're doing reels also now. He's like, that's what I've been told. I keep doing it. So, and I'm still think, okay, if I need to keep moving and doing my thing and keep evolving, I'll keep at it. It's frustrating at times. It's some days you want to throw in the towel and say, okay, like I said, the financial part of it is, this is not where I was meant to be. I once had a very good, consistent salary. Now you've got to juggle as an independent journalist, and if you're on the right side or the wrong side, depending on whoever's looking at it, you get trolled, your things get withheld. All of that is in a day's work. But I'm really very proud to say that we wrote Pratap, because I think it was a story that I wanted to share for the longest time, because I've been very aware of the legacy of this, of what I have been privileged to be born into. A family that started a newspaper in 1919 in Lahore, which was just 10 days before the Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and it was immediately shut down by the British, because it was sold out the very first day. The British shut it down, wouldn't let it come out the day the Jallianwala Bagh massacre happened, because it was that kind of a newspaper. It was supported by Gandhi. It was supported by Jawaharlal Nehru. It was started by my great-grandfather and my grandfather, who was very close to Nehru. And there are stories here, which there's one part I would like to read, because my grandfather was in jail with Bhagat Singh in the Lahore Central Jail the day Bhagat Singh was hanged. And so this was a very rare first-hand account that we've been privileged to have from my grandfather on the evening that Bhagat Singh was hanged. But apart from that, there are also stories of, what nobody really knows about, because my grandfather was a revolutionary. And when we hear about the freedom struggle, there is a generic story about freedom fighters, but nobody has spoken about the story of the revolutionaries from their point of view. So there is this one aspect of the fact that nobody speaks about, is that did Gandhi not do enough to save the revolutionaries? Could he have saved Bhagat Singh? And that, from this book, was our revelation. And we came to the conclusion he did not do enough. Because as much as we respect and revere the Mahatma, to allow for an as violent an act as the hanging was itself the irony for a man who believed in non-violence. So, we've dedicated a chapter to that. There are aspects of, because my grandfather was a revolutionary with Chandrasekhar Azad and stuff, we knew about, he knew, I don't think anybody knows that Bhagat Singh used to like going to watch a movie. So he would sneak out to watch the movies, and they would be just given like 4 annas to either eat. He would take that money and run off to watch the movie. And there was a time when Chandrasekhar Azad said, look, this is where you're going to be caught, watching a movie. But this was the story of the revolutionaries who also, we've also attempted to bring out a difference between that violence and the kind of violence that we see today. Because that was not violence, that was ideology. Today what we see is violence. And so we've tried to bring out very different aspects of a story in which the revolutionaries actually went to Mahatma Gandhi and said, can you save Bhagat Singh? And he refused. And nobody's actually spoken about that story. And so my grandfather then, he was in Lahore. Nehru came to him. He was very close to Nehru, and my grandfather had just learned how to drive a car. And Nehru wanted to go around Lahore because he loved people. And they wanted a car. And this was one of those rare families that had a car. So my grandfather said, I sat in the car and I took him, and across the road everybody would throw garlands. And I had just learned how to drive, but I couldn't tell him. So he said I was so nervous, and then people were throwing flowers, so I couldn't see. So I was just glad we made it home because, of who he was. So some fascinating stories in this, but of course I think the one that continues to give me goosebumps is the one about Bhagat Singh's hanging. So if I may read from there, I will just read a few pages and I just have to find the pages. I am almost there. Yeah, okay. So these are my grandfather's words. So we thought that the hanging would be on the morning of 24th March, but on the 23rd at about 2 p.m., the prison barber came running to us with tears in his eyes and in a quivering voice said, "Sab kuch khatam ho gaya, everything is over. The Sardar is saying that they would probably be hanged today itself. He has conveyed Vande Mataram to the two of you." Bringing his emotions under control, Virendra, that's my grandfather, requested Barkat to go back to Bhagat Singh and ask him for a keepsake that the two young men could treasure as a remembrance. Half an hour later, the barber returned. In his hands were a black fountain pen and a comb. On the comb, Bhagat Singh had carved his name with a blunt instrument. Ehsaan Ilahi kept the pen and I the comb. Every evening at 7 p.m., Chief Warder Chattar Singh would lock us up after securing all other prisoners. That day, he came at 4 p.m. When we asked him why he had come 3 hours early, he became emotional and could not speak. After several minutes, he composed himself and said the end had come. The three would be hanged that evening at 7 p.m. There was nothing that could be done to save them now. Just before 7 p.m., Bhagat Singh, Shivaram Rajguru and Sukhdev Thapar were brought out and taken towards the hanging area. As they walked, they loudly shouted, "Inqilab Zindabad." Hearing it, the other accused in the conspiracy case responded. Soon the entire jail was reverberating with loud cries of "Inqilab Zindabad." We also joined them. It spread even to the non-political prisoners who started shouting the same slogan, and it echoed across the jail. Then there was deadly silence. That night, no one ate in the central jail of Lahore and no one slept. Only the chief warder could tell us about the hangings as he was present at the spot. We waited for him to come, and at 7 in the morning, he finally opened our locks. Singh could not speak, and then he burst out crying. With tears streaming down his face, he said, "I am a government servant and I have seen many hangings, but I have never seen such bravery in facing the gallows before." When the revolutionary came out of his cell, Chattar Singh made a request. He said to him that there were only a few minutes left of his life and he should remember God. Hearing him, Bhagat Singh laughed, saying, "Sardarji, throughout my life I have never remembered him. Looking at the atrocities against the poor and the downtrodden, I may even have reprimanded him sometimes. Now, with death standing right in front of me, if I remember him, he will say that this young man is both dishonest and a coward. But if I do not change my views about him, he would say that this young man was both honest and brave. Saying this, Bhagat Singh started his walk towards the gallows. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been truly very, very insightful in so many ways, and these are two very different subjects, and we are privileged to know about so many facets from you, which we would have never ever thought of, and looking really forward to read the book as we get it later from you signed. So before we end the day, I just want to ask you one question, saying that if you had one piece of advice that you would want to offer to the audience today, for the women especially looking to reclaim or put out their voice today, what would that message be?
Believe in yourself. Do not listen to the others. Believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, I don't think anybody can touch you. And I always tell my mother, I am very proud of the fact that I have, whether it's personally or professionally, never brought a person down. But I have brought myself up. And that's what I believe in. I genuinely focus on myself instead of seeing what the other person is doing. I want to see what I can do. And that's what I'm saying, that the reason why I'm still here is because I feel like there's so much more I have to offer. And that's my belief. And you may not agree with it, but I am trying to be the best of me and give it out there. So I think that's what we can aim for.
And we can see you are... when she walked in and, I was supposed to welcome her, I had to wait. Is she Jyotsna? When all of us walked in and she, is she Jyotsna? Because I was like, maybe can this be a last question if you guys allow? What is your fitness routine? What do you do in the morning? Yeah. This is something we all we would like to listen.
I'm struggling.
We can't.
I only don't eat till 12 o'clock. I only that is also, I never was a morning person, so it's not tough for me. I'll be really honest. I just try not to eat till noon. So I convince myself it's intermittent fasting. It's just easy. It's just nothing. I should be doing more in the sense that, my husband and my sister, oh my God, they are like disciplined and they will not touch the fried. Me, I've eaten the nata. It's in front of me, I'll eat it. So if it's not in front of me, I won't eat it. But you do the best of, like I say, even in this, right? You do the best you can.
Yes.
And it's all individual.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jyotsna. It was indeed a pleasure interviewing you today. Yes, and I'm sure the audience has had a lovely time. Hand over to Gaurapriya now for the final thank you note. Yes. Oh yeah, sorry. If there are any questions for the audience, yeah. I will hand out this one.
For years. Today, whatever you spoke really touched my heart and my life too. All right? I know, I wish you all the luck for all your work ahead. There's a question which I would definitely like to ask you is, you have lived through the era of terrorism and experienced something. So the depth and insight, I can't even imagine. Did any of your family members, did they, may sound a little odd, but it makes a lot of difference with what I'm thinking. Were they ever a victim of terrorism when they were living? So you said your grandfather got a heart attack, which gave me a little, I felt, okay, he was not a victim of terrorism. And that just helped each one of you to leave back a legacy, which is now being shared with us. And I think it's very creditable.
Thank you. I think for my family, that bomb blast was a direct hit on the family. And for the family, the adults, that closure on that incident, that two men died on their watch, two innocent men died on their watch, I think has lingered all these years. And I think that is why my father, for him, I think it has been a closure to write this story.
No, I didn't mean that. Of course, that has been an impact of each one of you as a child and adult. But fortunately, none of you all, nobody in the family was a victim to end their life because of terrorism. Forced.
No, because I think that the understanding in the family was that, look, when partition happened, we left everything from start. So my family moved from Lahore to Jalandhar because Punjab was divided, so they moved from this side of Punjab to that side. And this was a family that had a house which had 22 rooms and a German car and a massive office, had to leave everything behind and start with a bicycle. So they came back really strong, saying, we've left it once, there's no way you can throw us out again. And I think there was also a lot of focus on them, because them and another family which had the assassinations, that, if they would leave, it would lead to an exodus. So I think they were very aware of that. Very adamant not to.
I know, but Hari, congratulations and all the best to this generations beyond. You are a strong woman. There's so much to learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Be about?
I don't know, Aarti, not like you. You've got two, but I'm thinking I should just completely go the other side and write something light.
Fiction.
Fiction, maybe. Or just something, easy breezy, as they say. I'm very tempted, though. But I don't know if I have. I think that is tougher to write.
Yeah,
satire, easy breezy is tougher to write than these issues. But maybe I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Jyotsna. Okay. You say that we should keep... Okay, I'm Siddharya Bodhade. You say that we should keep the children away from social media. How do we do it? Now, even the classes are done online. So they need to have a phone, they need to have a tab. How do you do it? And if you give these instruments into their hands, you can't keep them away from social media.
I don't say you keep them totally away. I say you push it for as long as you can. Okay. So there's a difference between an 8-year-old who's on Instagram or gaming versus a 14-year-old. Your knowledge and your maturity is by the year on that platform. And I'm actually very skeptical, and I'm actually amused as why would you give 8 and 9-year-old this kind of access? They don't need to be on Instagram. Big Tech anyway said that 13 is the age and everybody is going around it. Mine, I told you, I gave it at 14, and I haven't given her anything else. My elder one, she kept battering me for Snapchat because Snapchat is where this generation is chatting, right? And I haven't given it to date, and I know she doesn't have it. And my younger one, who's now just turned 13 and waiting for her turn, you know how they are, she's asked me, and I said, if your elder one hasn't got it, you're not going to get it. So she went to my elder one and she said, you've spoiled everything for me. Now I can't get it. Okay? So this is how kids are. But my thing from the beginning has been that your child does not need a phone at 8 or 9. If you're worried about the communication when they're out on the road, give them a regular phone. It does not have to be with access to the internet. They're going to be playing games. They're going to be accessing everything. And as long as by the year you're a winner when it comes to social media, because their maturity and their understanding. My elder one's understanding of social media is very different from what my younger one's is going to be. And they are just raring, the younger one's just raring to get her hands on it, and I'm just holding on, So I would just say, and I've written that in the book, you can't stop it. Yeah. You have to be in the game with them. You can't also be ignorant parents anymore, and push it for as long as you can. As long as you can. That is the only way, but know what they're doing.
Yeah. Maybe like Australia said, it's 17.
I'm very happy. When my book came out, my elder one was younger, and she said, I'm going to tell everyone not to read my mother's book. So she said, this one? Okay, now I'll tell everyone they can read this one.
In the house, how do you keep track of everything?
No cameras. But I've been on the ball. And I say, even though it is evolving by the day, it's very tough to keep up, right? So anything that even I do is not enough. But the only way you can do is to be open with your children and and to allow every kind of conversation in the home. So in my house, nothing is off limits. Nothing is off limits. You want to abuse, you abuse in front of me. So I know where you're coming from. I mean, don't abuse me, but I should know what your language is, right? So you have to have, it just basically, it comes down to this, because that whole thing of controlling your kids like this, that ship has sailed. You have to have an environment where it's open, where they can feel that, okay, they can come and tell you, Mama, this is what happened. So my elder one came, she said, Mama, you know what happened? You know, this friend of mine, there is this strange man, he tried to propose to her on Instagram, you know, this is that pedophilia that's happening, right? So, but she is now at an age where she's aware of it. My 13-year-old will not be aware of it. And that is the difference. Apart from the fact that open up your homes, nothing should be taboo. Nothing should be taboo. Because you will only gain from it. We have to change our mindsets a little bit, I think. For this generation, there is no other way.
Correct. Hi, I'm Mahesh. Can you just tell us a little more about that?
You know, YouTube is, if you look at it, there are many journalists, and, you know, either they speak for the government or they speak against, and rabidly so. So, and that's where the money is. You have to be a bit of a rabbit either which way, you know. I think journalism has also changed, because we can no longer say we are just going to be neutral. That goalpost has also shifted. My whole contention now is that you have to, instead of being just neutral and giving both sides of the story, you have to speak more and more about what is wrong. And, you know, if there are two sides and one side is this and one side is this, you've got to push this side up. And unfortunately, you know, money is with power. And I think a lot of journalists have realized that. If you saw Operation Sindoor and the coverage of it, you would, what a travesty, right? But a lot of journalists who were not even that bent of mind went exactly like that, because they kind of understood this is where the money is going to come from, this is where their power is going to come from. But I often ask, so there's a very handful of us who are left to pick up the pieces in a sense. And I always have a question, and you know, maybe it's not just you guys, it's because you're sitting here, but a larger middle class India. My question is, why is it that only people like us are left to speak up? Why don't we get the support? Why is middle class India not speaking up? Why have you left it on our shoulders to, you know, why should we keep firing and getting penalized for it? Monetarily, our accounts are withdrawn, or not getting jobs, withdrawn. My column has been withdrawn now recently for this reason. I keep paying a price, and there are some others, you know, and we have to keep looking, you know, should we go into teaching? Institutions are not taking us because this is not what they want. Why don't we have the support? And I think that is a question that a few of us would like people to think about, that if perhaps we had larger support, we would not be here, and we would not have those financial issues.
Yeah, but in England and all, I'm given to understand that the paper is very clear about which party it supports and why we trying to be neutral.
Oh, we're no longer neutral.
No, why we trying? Why we trying the pseudo path?
It's not pseudo. I think this is how journalism was meant to be. That globally it's gone right-wing is different from what journalism was meant to be, right? It's a trend. And whether there's a course correction, I don't know. But like there is a pushback against gadgets, hopefully there will be. What goes up comes down, and goes around comes around. But in our lifetime, journalism is over as we knew it. And my advice to anybody who's looking to get into it is don't.
Just one question, Jyotsna. I think there is still hope. The very fact that just one question. I think there is still hope. The very fact that you said is, why should only you be the one talking about it and the rest of us quiet? Can you help us in understanding how we can support this cause? How can we be a part along with you to achieve what we are all, what you think we should? And that is being open.
I think it is about speaking up. People are quiet. Forget having an outrage. To give you an example, Operation Sindoor happened. Everybody understood the kind of coverage that was, the misleading, misinformation that happened. Few days later, you all gone, not you all, but people have gone back to watching the same thing. Back to the same channels. Boycott those channels. If the moment you stop watching them, the moment they will stop getting their ad revenue, they will have to course correct. I mean, so many, my friends would call me and said, oh, Karachi port is taken. I said, that is fake information. No, but this channel is saying, I said, you will come back to me in 2 hours and you will acknowledge what I'm telling you, it's fake information. And sure enough, it was. But these channels, there was no apology. Because it is how it, because we allow it to be. And we forget. And we don't ask for accountability. They will speak, Riya Chakravarti, you can just malign a person on TV, character assassinate a person, call her all kinds of names, and it is business as usual. She goes to jail. At the height of COVID, 1 month that woman is in jail, being called all kinds of names on evening television. She's come out, nothing against her, and yet not a single apology. There is no accountability, and no one is speaking up. No one has questioned Navika Kumar and said why she's still on air.
I just have something to say. When I was reading about her, whatever I could in the short time, she mentioned that during the Pratap, whatever happened, the bomb blast that happened, and I'm going to connect it to what you just said right now. She said that, when the bomb blast happened, people died, not even one media house laid condolence. And obviously that's, a goodbye is a goodbye, and it's a very important thing, no matter what. And coming to what you were just saying right now, even you said this about your grandfather, that, you couldn't say goodbye, and I'm touching a very, very strong nerve there, because I have some very strong non-goodbyes, I want to know that, is that your drive, that, to talk about these things? Because, it has happened in so many ways, and you have really not been able to be there or heard an apology or goodbyes?
No, I think it's very simple. I just believe in the truth of things. I genuinely don't complicate matters. It's very simple for me. A truth is a truth is a truth. And what is wrong is wrong. And that's why I say that journalism today is speaking about what is wrong more than giving both sides of the story or being unbiased. So I've kept it very uncomplicated.
Yeah, one last question if there's.
Hi, Jyotsna. I want to know, since you have had such a distressful childhood, if I may say so, plus the book that you have written about children, there are distressing stories, I'm sure. So how do you keep yourself detached from all this, or not let it get to you?
I struggled with it when I was writing the children's book, because there were certain moments, how do you deal with it? I would come back after having written it, I would come to bed and I would wake up my husband and I was like, I can't sleep. A child just told me that she tried to kill herself on my face. That I tried, I knew how I could overdose. My parents are doctors. This is the first time I did not get 100 on 100. So I pulled down the medicines and I tried to overdose. It was just that my friend happened to come and she took me to the hospital. Or some other child who's telling me I slit my wrist because I don't think I deserve to live. And I had so many of these stories and it bothered me, It was tough. It was very tough. But that's where journalism comes in, right? You can internalize it, and yet you've got to do your job. I have to separate the two and write it. So after I would finish writing, I would internalize and say, oh my God, what is going on? And you would feel for these children and you would be like, where is help for them? But so I struggled a lot with that one. That one was written from the head, and this one, Pratap, is written from the heart. But I think I know how to separate the two. When I sit on my desk, I become a different person. And when I get off it, I'm a different person.
Gaurapriya, and thanks a lot for all the questions, and to Jyotsna for such honest answers.
Jyotsna, two diverse topics, I must say, and you just kept us wanting more. Really, and your book, as you said, was just not a book, it opened a path for children to go and speak their minds out. That's amazing. Thank you for it. Good evening, everyone. I, Gaurapriya Pai Kane, Ehsaas woman of Goa, express a heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest author, Mrs. Jyotsna Mohan, for gracing us with her presence today and giving us such an engaging and insightful session. Through your lens as a journalist, author, and a fearless voice, you have reminded us of the importance of truth, integrity, and courage in today's world. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time off and being with us today and answering our questions so thoroughly. To our esteemed audience, thank you for being the heartbeat of this gathering. It is your language, your love, and your constant support that keeps us geared up at all times. I would also like to thank our hospitality and venue courtesy, Taj Siddharth Goa Heritage. Thank you always, Mrs. Timlo. You and your staff have really been wonderful all this time. Media partner Lokmat, Shri Cement, and the unwavering support of Ehsaas Women of Goa, Mrs. Vaishali Joshi, and Shruti Juwarkar. Prabha Khaitan Foundation promotes cross-state cultural understanding and appreciation. A mosaic of cultures forms the backbone of our nation, contributing to its vibrancy and richness. This is to support our ongoing efforts to foster unity and appreciation of the rich cultural heritage across India's diverse states. Keeping this in mind, we are pleased to present the author with one such giveaway on behalf of the team. We are pleased to felicitate the author with a giveaway made in a beautiful dhokra. Dhokra, a non-ferrous metal, is beautifully molded by artisans to craft artifacts, accessories, and utensils, owing its name to the Dhokra Damar tribe of West Bengal. I would like to call upon my dear friend, Neeta Bird, Vice President and Assets for Memento Resorts and Hotels Private Limited, to felicitate Jyotsna.